Hey guys, welcome to Let's Play Dark Souls Part 5. Last time we defeated the Capra Demon, and I showed you guys the fastest way to get through the depths. Today we're actually going to be going through the rest of the depths that we skipped and fighting the boss. Over here, back at Firelink, we can meet Laurentius, and if you don't have the Pyromancy Flame, then he'll just give you one for free. The only way you can actually have one at this point is by picking the Pyromancer. But he'll upgrade your Pyromancy Flame so that they'll do more damage, and he also will sell you Pyromancies. One thing that's interesting about Pyromancy is there's no stat in the game that you actually have to upgrade to make it stronger, which is one of the reasons it's very powerful, because it's like you can get a bunch of damage in it by upgrading the flame, but then you can still use your levels for stuff like vitality, and like you can get a bunch of HP, which is part of the reason it's one of the most broken ways to play in the game. Over here, we can see Petrus's guests have arrived, which is Rhea of Thorland and her two bodyguards. She doesn't tell us much for now, other than she's on some mission. Now that they're here, we can finally talk to Petrus, and he'll let us learn Shrug and buy miracles without having to join the Covenant. Most of his miracles, like I said, aren't very good, other than heal. Heal is okay. And then finally over here is Griggs, and he teaches you sorceries. He also sells two rings, which affects both sorceries and pyromancies. It says it only affects sorceries, but it actually does affect pyromancies as well. So if you are a pyromancer, you'll want to buy one. One of the rings increases the damage that your sorceries and pyromancies do, and the other one increases the length that they last. So usually the damage one is better. The length one doesn't affect as many. But now we're just gonna do some backtracking and make our way back to the depths so that we can do the entire depths now. So, back in here, the Dreglings are back, so just need to kill them real fast. We've already been through this area, so there's not really much to say. There is a small shortcut that is there's these holes in the wall here, and you can skip through them to skip to the later part of the depths. And so you can skip that room with the butcher over there. We've already killed her, and usually you wouldn't want to do this anyway because you would want to get the large umber anyway. But I'm just going to skip down here so we don't have to fight those dogs. And there's actually another butcher. And so she hangs out up top. So if you're not ready for her, she might be able to get some sneak attacks on you. If the first butcher didn't drop the sack, the second one will. An interesting mechanic in this game: if there's an enemy that drops a specific item and that's the only way you can get that item, and that enemy eventually doesn't respawn, then once you kill all of that enemy, the last enemy will always drop the item if you haven't obtained that item. So basically what I'm saying is the only way you can get the sack in the game is from one of the two butchers. And so if once you kill the second butcher, if you didn't get it from the first butcher, there's a 100% chance that the second butcher will drop it. And that works with all enemies that are that way. I knew these slimes were on the ceiling here, but I thought I could just run through this area. And I thought if you ran fast enough, you could avoid them from landing on you, but apparently I was wrong. I think there is a way to do it, but I think I just messed it up. These slimes aren't very threatening. Their only real way to damage you is when they first appear. when they drop on you. Once they're on the ground, if they take any sort of damage, they can't attack you. And when they do attack, they attack extremely slowly. They have to do this like little charge up and then they poof out like these spikes. So they're not very threatening. But if they do land on top of you, they'll usually one-shot you. So they are weak to fire. So if you're a pyromancer, you can kill them very fast. But if you're anything else, they have a crap ton of defense. And so they take like 1,000,000 hits to kill. They also drop large Titanite shards and green Titanite. Large Titanite upgrades like our weapon, how it's gone from +6 to +10. Green Titanite is used for special upgrades, which include divine, magic, and fire. We actually haven't found out how to do any of those yet. We can technically do each of those at this point, but we haven't like met the people. Two of the ones are pretty easy to meet. One of them we aren't intended to have actually met so far. The key we got in the last episode opens this door. The master key also works. In the last episode, when we unlocked that shortcut, right over here, this ladder is where you would come out at, so you would just go up through that passageway to the bonfire. Down here, there's a bunch of rats. They're guarding a great axe, which is an okay strength weapon. It's not very good. It requires, I believe, 32 strength, and it only has a D scaling. And it's also still really heavy. It's not as heavy as some of the strength weapons, but because of its poor scaling, it's not that good. It could be good if you made it... It's probably better if you make it elemental. Unfortunately, elemental weapons aren't nearly as good as they used to be. In the original version of the game, elemental weapons were some of the most OP weapons in the whole game. But ever since the PC patch, ever since it came out on PC and then it got patched on the consoles, they got nerfed by 10%. And so they're a lot weaker than they used to be. Down here, I think there's 4 rats, and then there's a channeler. Usually you want to just sort of lure the rats out. The channeler actually ended up getting lured. A lot of the time he won't come up there though. Sometimes he's just not near it, and so usually it's best just to get the rats first and then you come down and kill the channeler. In this case, the channeler actually came up there. And then he did the dance, and so I was just able to easily kill him. Over here, there's a definite large Titanite shard. If you were looking to upgrade your weapon and you weren't able to find a large Titanite shard before this point, you can use that one. And then, I know it's kind of a backtrack, but you can go back to the blacksmith. And what you can do is you can rest at the bonfire, run back to the blacksmith, upgrade your weapon, and then homeward bone right back to the bonfire to save a bit of time. Up here's where we fought the giant rat last episode. So this is how you would normally get to him. Down here, we can go down to the lower part of the depths, and there are these frog dudes that shoot out. They shoot out like this smoke, and what it does is it causes curse. I was mentioning in the last episode how you can get cursed now. And this is actually one of the only enemies in the entire game that can actually curse you. But your curse resistance usually isn't very good. It's determined by the amount of humanity you have, which we actually have a few humanity. And so we do have a little bit of curse resistance, but it's also determined by your armor. However, most armors actually don't have any curse resistance, and we actually don't have any armors in our inventory that have any curse resistance. Here we pick up the Ring of the Evil Eye. It's a pretty crappy ring. Every time you kill an enemy, you get a small percentage of your HP back. It's not very much, though. Usually any ring would be better, but it's our only other ring currently. We also have the Ring of Favor and Protection, which we got when we killed Knight Lautrec of Kareem. It's one of the most overpowered rings in the game. It gives you 20% increase to HP, stamina, and equipment load. However, if you ever remove it, it breaks. So I don't usually use it. Particularly a lot of newer players like it just because it makes the game easier. I don't like it because it limits you to like what you can use and stuff. So I usually just get it, but then just leave it there. Also, you'll notice there are like other cursed undead in this area that have just been turned to stone, which is what cursing does is it turns you to stone and instantly kills you, and then your HP is permanently halved until you cure the curse, which is what a purging stone can do. But the other undead that are cursed in here are actually other human players that have gotten cursed in their worlds. I think a few of them are like just sort of there always. You know, just so that there's still some if you're offline, or like, you know, obviously the game isn't as popular as it used to be now, so there's less people playing it. And so there won't be as many people dead by curses. But anyway, up here we're actually back to where we were able to shortcut to last time. And now, there's a couple enemies in this room, there's a couple rats, and then there's a couple more of these slimes. Usually you can just sort of ignore them. They're really a pain in the ass to kill because they take so many hits. Overall, over here we meet Donald of Xena. He sells quite a few things. He sells the bottomless box, which I'm actually going to buy. He also sells the master key. I don't remember if he sells it right now or after he moves. Unfortunately, at this point, getting the master key this late, while it's been useful up to this point, from this point onward, it's not very useful. There's only like one more door that it opens, and then literally for the rest of the game, there's no other doors that it opens. Every locked door you actually need the actual key to. So the master key is only really useful early on in the game. So the fact that you can buy it at this point is kind of irrelevant. He also teaches you a gesture. However, most of the classes start with the gesture. So most people don't know that he actually teaches you a gesture. However, if you start as the knight class, and I believe the cleric class, there's a certain gesture that's actually different. And the gesture that most people start with, Donald will actually teach you. And if you start as one of those two classes, then now you can get it. I think it's joy, I think is what it is. I always forget. But the gesture that they start with, you learn from, I think it's Rhea of Thurland, which as our class will be able to learn later. You don't actually get to learn anything from her for a really long time, though. So, we became human, and we're actually going to meet our first NPC invader. So, whenever you're human, you can get invaded and summon people. And there's also NPC invasions in the game. And this is the first one in the game, which is the Dark Spirit Knight Kirk. I was just waiting for him. If you just sort of wait for him, you can get a quick backstab off and you can kill him really fast. His weapon does cause bleed. And when you kill him, there's a chance he'll drop either his sword or his shield. And there's actually 3 locations in the game that he appears in. And if you kill him in every single location, you can actually get his armor set. And his armor set isn't that good, but it's kind of it's a unique set, and that is it's covered in spikes. And so you can actually roll around and use your rolling as damage to hurt enemies. It doesn't do very much damage, so it's kind of pointless, but I don't know. It's kind of cool the way it works. So anyway, down here is where the boss is, this giant open area to the side. There's a summon for Knight Solaire, and if Knight Lautrec is still alive, which we killed him earlier, his summon would appear there as well. They're not very useful, though. Honestly, I think summoning them probably makes the boss harder, just because this boss isn't too hard, but he has a lot of health. And whenever you summon people, the boss's health in the game actually increases. And so, I don't really recommend summoning them. Because of this boss's massive amount of health, I use the gold pine resin. However, as you will find out shortly, it is mostly wasted because this boss majorly trolled me. So, there's only really one attack that he does in which you can actually hit him, and that is this attack where he slams his entire body just into the ground. Unfortunately, this fight I get majorly trolled in the beginning, and he just doesn't do it for the longest time, and so this gold pine resin really didn't help out. Here's the warrior starting set right there. And there is a location for every starting set in the game, by the way. We will be finding them all, I think. But, for the most part, what you want to do is just run, and then when he does that attack, you can finally hit him. His head is his weak point. However, shortly after he slams into the ground, he'll do a charging attack. So you want to like hit him in the head a couple of times and then get out of the way and then just hit him in his tail. His tail does chop off, and if you manage to chop it off, he drops the Dragon King Great Axe, which is, it requires 50 strength to use, so you probably don't have much strength to use it at this point. It's an okay weapon. I don't believe it has any scaling at all, but it has a very, very high base damage. And so it doesn't really matter that it doesn't have any scaling. It's kind of a cool weapon. It's not the greatest, though. It does have a unique two-handed R2, as do all the dragons. Yeah, I believe every dragon weapon has a special like two-handed R2 move. But yeah, the basic strategy to this guy is just run away from him whenever he's not doing this attack, and then when he is, just run up to him and hit him as much as you can. And I thought I actually wasn't going to get this axe, but then with the very last attack I actually managed to chop it off, so that was a little lucky. But anyway, that's the Gaping Dragon, and now we get the Blight Town key. So goodbye.